Let's hop in. It's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out for the program today. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. So let's begin our journey with this. When we look at the calendar right now, we're in mid March, which 6 years ago, everything changed. How did you get through COVID, and how has it changed the way that you approach things now?
COVID was really an eye opener for a lot of people, I think. And some people, it was really great. And for others, because especially for people that had anxiety and social anxiety, especially, it was great for them to have people keep away 6 feet and not be in their faces and in their spaces. And it was great for people as an excuse not to go out and not to do anything. For me, I never stopped going to work. I was actually seeing patients in person at that time, and it didn't seem to really affect me that much necessarily, but I know it really did affect a lot of my patients where families were pitted against each other and vax or no vax, mask or no mask. And so it caused a lot. I think it really triggered the anxiety of a lot of people. And for me, as somebody that has a history of anxiety, I was surprised that I was relatively calm. And I think the way that I've approached it since then is I'm not so reactive. Like the worst case scenario happened, right? A lot of people were so afraid of something that bad happening, and yet we got through it. And so for me, that just showed a sign of resilience for me and humanity in general, and that we will get through it. And so I think that's changed my perspective.
I think that's what I kept thinking throughout the whole thing too, is that no matter what happens, the length of resiliency has to be increased because it wasn't a couple of things that were rearranged. Our entire lives were absolutely thrown into a snow globe and shook. So let me ask you this. If we wanted to get a handle on what you do on a daily basis, and I put you in front of a bunch of 12 or 13-year-olds at career day in a school, and you had to tell them what you do on a daily basis, how do you make it make sense to them?
Well, I help people just have somebody to talk to and guide them and dealing with their emotions, dealing with their fears, dealing with their frustrations. Some people might not have anybody to talk to. They might not want to talk to their parents. They might not want to talk to their friends. They might be dealing with things that they're too embarrassed to talk about. And so going to a therapist is a safe place to go and share all of your thoughts and feelings without feeling judged, without feeling like you're doing anything wrong. And then they just guide you. It's not my job to judge what you're doing. It's just my job to guide you so that you're feeling aligned internally with your values and your beliefs. And a lot of times people struggle because they're doing things that they know it doesn't feel good inside. It's not who they are, but they're doing it maybe for peer pressure. They're doing it because they think they have to. They're doing it to conform, especially teenagers. And this is the place where you can really explore all of those thoughts and feelings and then feel strong enough and supported enough to come back to figuring out, okay, what is it that I really want to do? I know that when I was in my late teens, I realized I was wearing a lot of different masks. I was a different person to my friends. I was a different person to my family. I was a different person to my teachers. And so I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to integrate all of those people. I just want to remove the masks and be myself at all times. But I wanted to test it out in my journal, for example. So in my journal, I made a vow that I was going to be completely 100% honest and raw about my thoughts and my feelings, no matter how dark my thoughts seemed. And it's so funny, at the time, I thought my thoughts were so dark and so scary. And now read them back and I was like, oh God, that was like nothing. That was just such innocent thinking. But at that time, you feel like that. But going into a journal and really exploring who you truly are so that you're feeling aligned with who you are, you're going to be more at peace with yourself, and you're not going to feel pressure to be something you're not, because that's where the problems start.
So, how did you embrace telehealth? Walking into that world, was that something that was good for you?
Like I said, for COVID, I wasn't seeing anybody telehealth. I was seeing people in person. And then
Okay.
afterwards, a lot of people got so used to doing telehealth that it was very convenient for them. So then I embraced telehealth because it was a lot easier for my patients to not have to drive across town to come see me, to sit in a waiting room, to waste several hours just, just doing therapy. This way they can log in during lunch, their lunch break, and then do their session, and then they go back to work,
Yeah.
or they don't have to drive anywhere. They don't have to do anything. So I'm completely telehealth now because my patients prefer telehealth
Yeah.
to actually making that distance and seeing somebody in person.
Yeah, I embraced it myself. So let me ask you this. When you were like 12 or 13 years old, you're at career day. What was your dream job? What did you want to be when you grew up?
12 or 13, I was a recent immigrant to this country. So I was tackling a lot of different things. I was figuring my way around, I was learning a new language. But it was around that time when the space shuttle was a big thing.
Yeah.
And we would actually watch the launches in school. And so, one of the things, even though I didn't understand a lot about my new culture, my new country, my new home, whatever, one of the things that really sparked my interest was I really, really wanted to be an astronaut. And I just loved space. In college, I studied astronomy and I've just been obsessed with space. And I was really devastated that because I didn't have perfect vision, I had astigmatism, I couldn't be an astronaut. And that was just heartbreaking. And I had to move on and figure something else out.
Yeah. Well, take me back to your beginnings. Where are you from originally? And what were the seeds that were planted into you that have you in psychology and the therapeutic arts helping people? How did this happen?
Surprisingly, it's all connected. I was born and raised in Afghanistan. I was there up until the Russians invaded Afghanistan, and we had to leave. We literally had to leave in the middle of the night with the clothes on our backs.
Wow.
And we snuck out, left everything, left our house completely full, didn't take much with us. Um, and so the whole thing was kind of a shock because I knew something was happening, but my parents couldn't tell us that we were leaving. And so one night I woke up in Pakistan. I woke up in a country I didn't understand the language. I didn't know the people. We didn't know anybody. I left all my friends behind. And we were in Pakistan for several months before we got accepted to come to the United States as political asylums. And coming to America was very, very shocking to my system. And before that, I was a very bossy, you know, boss girl type of attitude in school. Even though I was like 8 years old, I had a lot of friends. I loved to tell stories. I loved to run around, and I was a tomboy. I just commanded respect and attention from my friends. And so when I came to this country, I just became debilitatingly shy and very, very afraid of talking to people. And so that level of anxiety, I knew who I was back when I was a child, and I knew that that person was still there. And the fact that I couldn't even speak up in class. I mean, one of the stories that I have is in eighth grade. I mean, it was either seventh or eighth grade. Like I said, I barely spoke English, and my teacher sent me out with a boy I had a crush on to go do some biology project. I remember I started crying because it was such an overwhelming thing for me. So imagine a middle schooler crying. I mean, how humiliating and embarrassing
Yeah.
that is. And so all of that, I just realized I had a lot of fear of a lot of things. And by the time I was 19 years old, I was just like, I'm done. I'm so sick of living in fear. I'm so sick of living in this small little world that I've created for myself. And so I was like, before I turn 20, I don't want to take all these fears with me to my 20s. And around that time, like I said, being an immigrant, I didn't understand, like, psychology wasn't something you talked about, therapy wasn't something you talked about back then. And so I just started taking psych classes and just learning different things. And I was like, oh wow, there's a name for what I'm going through. There's this whatever I'm studying is explaining what I'm going through. So I just kept studying it and kept studying it and trying to figure it out. And while at the same time pushing my comfort zone and expanding my comfort zone as much as I could. And obviously it took me a long time to do it because I was doing it by myself. Like I said, there was no therapy. I didn't go to anybody to talk to. It wasn't as widely accepted as it is now. We didn't have social media to guide us. And so it did take a lot of trial and error for me. But every year I just kept pushing and growing in different ways. But I did also realize in my 20s, anxiety held me back a lot. It affected my grades in school, in high school, and college. It affected my grades. And as a graduate student, I was afraid to speak up. I was afraid to do public presentations. I would rather fail than show up to do the presentation and get that F, because I was so terrified. And I think the biggest mistakes my teachers made was feeling sorry for me and allowing me to not do those presentations, because then that justified or gave me a reason to say, okay, well, other people I can get away with this. I don't have to do this. And the fact that I didn't do it made it a lot more difficult later on for me to do public presentations. And now I do that on a regular basis, and it's not that big of a deal, but it took a long time for me to work on that. And the whole point of me studying psychology was really to start working on myself first. And then I realized that it really runs deep in my family, and it's an inherited thing that I've inherited myself, and a lot of family members have it as well. And it is highly genetic. So if you have anxiety, you're going to realize that there are other people in your family that probably struggle in similar ways. Some of them are probably self-medicating with food or with drugs or with alcohol. And so just trying to cope. But it's also a very common disorder. It's the number one disorder in the world right now. And all the anti-anxiety medications they're not even making a dent in creating like a lesser level of anxiety in the population globally. So obviously there's more involved than just medication with taking care of anxiety. And for me, I became a holistic psychologist because I started exploring alternative medicines, alternative herbs and treatments, and Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine. And I started incorporating those modalities into my treatment with my patients. And so once I identified anxiety for myself, because like I said, even though I was struggling with all this in my teens and 20s, I didn't really make the connection that I was dealing with anxiety until I was in my early 30s.
Yeah.
And so once I made that connection, I started helping my patients and my family members. And then from there, I just ended up specializing in anxiety. So it's all connected based
Interwoven.
on where I was going through.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Who's been your inspirational force, your hero in your life?
Well, that's my dad.
Yeah.
He's been amazing. He's been so supportive. He's a girl dad. He's got 3 daughters. He's raised all of us to be very strong and independent, and has always supported us. And he's just such a good, consistent, reliable person, that he's always been on such a pedestal for me. And I don't think anybody could come close to that.
So living in America right now, it seems like from your beginnings of leaving war and dealing with anxiety, and you're obviously an immigrant, all of these things that are happening in America right now about immigration and war and all of this, is it bringing levels of anxiety that you've gotten over previously? How is that operating being in America in 2026 for you?
What's so interesting, trauma is such an interesting thing for me. And I like working with trauma with patients, because sometimes you don't even know that you have a certain trauma or something was traumatic for you until it happens, right? Like I remember one time, I don't know if you're familiar with the Blue Angels in San Francisco, but every October they fly, and it's just a beautiful
Yeah.
scene. And like I said, I've always loved flying, and I love the idea of just going into space and wanting to fly a plane. And so I've always been obsessed with jets. But one time I was just walking, and the jet hit the sound at a certain level that it just shook me to my core.
Yeah.
And I realized, it's like, oh wow, that's from when I used to be a child, and the jets would fly over and they drop bombs. I mean, I literally one time we had to sleep in a ditch because they were dropping bombs, and we were watching the bombs explode. So I had no idea that that was affecting me all these years later until that happened. And so when Biden pulled out of Afghanistan in 2021, and we saw all of those Afghans just jumping on the planes and falling off the planes, and just so much chaos, that also triggered my anxiety and my trauma, because I just kept crying, just wept for my people, wept for my country, that after all of these years, they're still in war, they're still struggling, they haven't been able to recover and rebuild. And so there's a part of you that is always going to be connected to your homeland, no matter where you are, no matter how long you've been here. And it's not a lack of gratitude. It's just that it's like being connected to your mom. No matter where you go, you're always going to have that connection. It's the same thing to your motherland. Um, and so it's not just for me. I know a lot of other Afghans that have lived in this country because we were forced to flee. We're still connected, and we still like weep for our people, for our country, for the fact that it can never get better. And it does trigger my anxieties. But thankfully, because of my training, I'm able to get myself back on track. But that's the thing with anxiety. It's not like you're going to cure it. It's just a matter of making it work for you and being in control of it instead of letting it control you. Because when it's controlling you, that's when you're having issues. That's when you're debilitated. That's when you're not able to function. But when you're in control of it and you're making it work for you, then it doesn't have to cause problems in your life.
And that's interesting. That's a perfect segue into my next question, which is at the end of the day, you're helping people get through anxiety and you've dealt with anxiety. How do you protect yourself? Because you have to get into those places with them to help them get through it. How do you protect yourself and how do you do an effective job every day of nurturing your soul and being the best practitioner of healing modalities for them?
Well, I think it's really important for me to make sure that my anxiety is that manageable and in control. And the way I do that is I have this 5 pillar system that I've created, which is basically you start with making sure your mindset and your irrational thoughts and beliefs are under control. So you focus on making sure that it's like almost like weeding in a garden. You don't want these weeds to just grow and completely suffocate the rest of your plants. So, and as soon as these irrational thoughts and beliefs come up, I have to make sure I challenge them. I cannot believe them. I have to uh, redirect my thoughts so that I'm more functional and more uh, rational with my thinking. And that happens when I take care of my brain and my body. It happens when I'm feeding my brain the nutrients it needs and taking care of my gut. So that be the next level is my physical health, making sure that I'm as healthy mentally and physically as possible. And sometimes we might need to do a blood test to see if we're missing some nutrients. And if there's a nutrition deficiency, then your brain is going to get more stuck and you're going to be more irrational and you're going to be more reactionary or reactive to your environment, because stress isn't about what's happening outside of you. When you're aligned and you're calm, you're not as reactive to things that are happening outside of you. But when you're just chaotic on the inside, the smallest thing is going to push you over the edge. And then the next one would be my emotions, making sure that I'm constantly checking in with myself and journaling all my anger and frustration so that I'm not stuffing my feelings, I'm not bottling things up, and that I'm keeping a like a balanced level of reaction so that I'm not exploding every 5 seconds because somebody's looking at me the wrong way. And then the fourth one is all about behavior management. And this is about my routines and my habits. Sleep is the most important thing when it comes to anxiety management. So really your day starts the night before. So if I go to bed on time, if I have a good bedtime routine, if I'm allowing my body to rest and repair between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. and going into that deep coma-like sleep and allowing my body to rest and repair and my brain to wash itself, then I'm less reactive the next day. I'm not in need of caffeine and I'm not in need of other things to keep me going. I'm more calm. I start my morning in a very calm way, a slow morning where I don't touch my phone, I don't touch my computer until 1 hour to 2 hours after I wake up. I do other things. I pray, I exercise, I walk my dog, I make sure I get some sunshine, I make sure sunshine hits my eyes and my forehead, I do stretches. So all of those things are helping me be less reactive. And then the fifth pillar is all about grounding myself. It's the somatic, it's my spirituality, it's my faith, it's making sure that I detach myself from all electronics and not overwhelm my system with too much, just consuming so much passively. Sometimes I might even just take my shoes off and put it on a tree and sit in a chair while I'm like closing my eyes and breathing or doing a 10-minute guided meditation. There's something so healing and energetic about touching a tree or being near a tree or being under a tree. I know that walking on grass is really, really good for us, but in Arizona, we have red ants and we have all kinds of bugs crawling on you. So I don't like that. That's why I would prefer just put my feet up on a tree.
Yeah.
So those are all things that I'm doing to keep myself as grounded and aligned as possible. And that's a 24-hour job. And I'm not saying that this is overwhelming or difficult. This is just part of my routine. I start off with a really good breakfast so that my blood sugar isn't all over the place. These are just choices that I make every day so that when I show up with my patients, I'm calm, I'm balanced, and so I'm able to help them and not make it about myself.
So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, ran into that young version of you that is newly out of your like when you came to America and you had a projector next to you and you hit play and it showed your life, what it's turned into, the choices that you made. Would that young version of you believe that your life turned out this way?
With that young person, what did you say?
Would that young person of you believe your life turned out this way?
Oh gosh, probably not because she was so scared. She
Yeah.
was so scared back then and just didn't think and we didn't have any role models. I mean, you asked me who my role models is. I mean, and my dad has always been that pillar, but outside of us, we were so new. We were one of the first few families to leave Afghanistan. And so we didn't have anybody else paving the way for us. We didn't have anybody telling us these are the things you need to do in order to be successful. I mean, you hear about Chinese families, they come in, they help each other get settled, they help each other save money, they all help each other buy a property or whatever. It's a community that embraces them and supports them until they get on their feet and then they move on and they go build and create and do other things. We didn't have any of that. We had to figure it out for ourselves. And so it was a long journey. And I am so grateful for my parents for the sacrifices they made to make sure that we had all of these opportunities. But they didn't push us. They didn't know what to expect from us. You know, I mean, back in Afghanistan, women didn't have a lot of opportunities. I mean, I had family members that were highly educated. My aunt was a teacher, but nobody expected like to come here and to have so many opportunities. And the fact that we took advantage of that and were able to do the things that we've accomplished has been really impressive. And right now I have doctors and lawyers and dentists and every profession represented in my family. And this is just the two families that came together, me with my siblings and my five cousins. So that just says a lot about how much we've grown. And but would we have imagined it when we were 10, 11 years old? No, we wouldn't have.
So what are you the proudest of? When you look back on your life, the big rear view mirror of everything that you've done and accomplished, what are you the happiest about?
I think the fact that I'm able to be in control of my anxiety and not allow it to control me any longer. I see some people that just allow it to, and they just say, "This is just how I am. This is the way it is," um, or that I can't do anything about it. I'm dependent on doctors. I'm dependent on medication. I'm dependent on, or I'm just homebound. I can't really. I create this small little life for myself. I can't expand, and that's not the solution. I mean, there are so many ways to help yourselves get out of that, and I think that's the fact that I've been able to help so many people go from feeling debilitated and it wouldn't have happened if I didn't go through that myself, because I know that I understand anxiety in a way that somebody that's just studying it is not going to. So, like, I can help somebody a lot faster than somebody that's just guessing based on some symptoms. And there, even though I was studying psychology, I was actually in my doctorate program studying psychology, and I still didn't connect my symptoms to anxiety because I wasn't debilitated. I wasn't on the extreme end of anxiety unless you are on that extreme end and you're needing medication or you're needing to be stabilized somehow. A lot of people won't even notice that what you're going through is anxiety and it's actually impacting your life and holding you back in a lot of ways. So the fact that I've been able to not only manage my own symptoms but also help so many people, I think that's the thing that I'm the most proud of.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues. We talked about this before about unifying all of these different spheres of who we are. But who do you think you are? What's your perception of you?
I think I'm a caring person. I care really deeply for just the state of the world, for animal welfare, for human welfare. And that drives me. That really drives me to just be of service and to just help people as much as possible. My goal right now is to help as many young people, like you mentioned, the teenagers, the college students, not struggle and suffer like I did. Like I really am motivated to give them the tools that they need so that they don't end up going through life feeling like they're being held back or feeling like they can't do some of the things. Like in my 20s, I was filled with so much angst. I want to avoid that for as many people as possible. So the fact that I deeply care makes me want to just give it all away and talk to as many people as possible and share this with as many people as possible. And somebody even asked the other day, like, if I would do this for free if I could. If I didn't have bills to pay or an overhead or any of that or a business to run, I totally would do this for free.
Yeah.
If somebody could like sponsor me and support me in every way, I would totally go out on a road trip and just share everything I know with everyone. But because I can't do that, I did write all the information in my book just to give people all the information that I've collected over the years and all this strategies that I share with my patients. I put it all in my book. And so if anybody, and it's available for free at the library, you can listen to it, you can read it digitally, you can check it out. But it has all the tools that people need to at least get started. And then if they need additional help, obviously reach out to people that can support them.
Okay, so along with the book, if anybody wants to book a time with you, hire you, dive into any other resources, where's the best place for them to go?
Well, they can go to drsekandari.com, but as a psychologist, I'm only limited to working with people in Arizona and California
Okay.
because those are the only two places that I'm licensed in.
Okay.
But I do have memberships. I have courses online that have all the things that I do in a session for people that are around the world or anywhere outside of Arizona and California that can get started on their own. They get all the tools that they need through these courses. I have a membership where I'm also showing up live once a month, helping people just answer their questions. Obviously, I'm not doing therapy in those sessions. I'm just helping people, giving them the resources that they need. And then I have a lot of videos on YouTube that people can watch to just get an idea of some of the tips and strategies that I share. But mostly it's drsekandari.com that I go to.
Excellent. I will put that link in the show notes. What a joy. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time and continue changing the world. We need it.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you.